I've always been kind of careful about doing speculative videos. It's not any kind of high-minded, I don't want to play in that space. It's more that I think I'm afraid of being proven wrong in the future. But you know what? I'm feeling adventurous today and thought I might do some speculating about what I think one of my favorite brands, Breitling, might be getting ready to do reasonably soon. Hi, welcome back to Not So Obvious Watches. I'm Pete McConville, and this is a little bit of speculation, which is not something I indulge in a lot, about where I think Breitling might be going in the future. As a Breitling fan, if you like, I've been watching their catalogue online a lot of late, and like a lot of brands, Breitling are much better at talking about the new than they are about the old. They're much happier to talk about the new releases than they are about the watches that are discontinued. In fact, like most brands, they don't talk about the brands that the watches that they don't produce at all anymore. They're very much the unknown soldier buried in a field somewhere, never to be spoken of again. But one thing I would say, and I wish I'd been keeping more screenshots so I could have kept better track of this. I feel like recently there's been a lot of fallen soldiers. There's been a lot of discontinued models. What I'd say is that the Super Ocean line, not the Heritage line, but the Super Ocean line, seems to have about half the SKUs it used to have. It used to go on for 3 or 4 pages of different colorways and different options. Now we're down to like a page and a half. And it just looks like, as I say, huge numbers of watches have just vanished. Likewise, amongst all the collections, the number of watches offering a 7750 based caliber has been slashed. Massive emphasis on the new B01 based in-house manufacturers, but very, very few, if any, 7750s, except for the odd special edition. I'd also note that in those lines that did tend to use a lot of ETA and Sellita based movements, that is the Super Ocean, the Avenger, or the three-handed Premiers, or the three-handed Aviator 8s, there's been essentially no love. There's been almost no new models since those watches were introduced 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago. We do see the odd new chronograph here or there. We have seen a few special and limited editions, capsule collections. We've seen a couple of women's watches where Breitling had little to no watches in the past. But in terms of the core things that we'd come to expect, that is Avengers, Premiers, Aviator 8s, and Super Ocean divers, nothing new to the core in years for those watches that were using ETA or Sellita movements. And finally, what I would say is there have been lots and lots of new watches come out, but they have almost all been using either in-house variations of the Breitling B01 automatic chronograph, or in some cases manual wind chronograph, but always iterations of that, or where they've used outsourced movements like the Tourbillon movement or the Datora movement. Those have been from higher end independent watch manufacturers like Concepto or Le Jeu Perret, and not your core ETA or Sellita. Where new watches have used ETAs or Sellitas, as I said earlier, they've tended to be short-run capsule collections, limited editions, special editions, that sort of thing. So in short, it looks like Breitling is trying to limit its reliance upon, reduce its exposure to, and avoid any investment in ETA or Sellita based watches. Some other things I would note more generally. Breitling has made no bones about the fact that it is intending to grow. Georges Kearns has mentioned a number of times that he sees in the longer term the number of major watch brands likely to survive could be as little as 12 to 20. And he seems, because he's a major owner of Breitling, absolutely determined to make sure that Breitling is going to be there. So he's definitely intending on growing the company. He's also made it clear that Breitling has no interest in getting there by selling vast numbers of very cheap watches. He has spoken about his desire to keep control of distribution, keep control of numbers, and not to pump prime the market. And at the same time, he's been talking about the desire to keep prices accessible. So I think what they're looking at doing is selling more watches that are slightly more expensive, not vastly more expensive, but just a little bit more. And finally, I would note that whilst Breitling is a chronograph specialist, and that is the core of what they do, that's never going to be enough to build an entire brand on. Chronographs are still something of a specialist watch. So if you really want to be in the top echelon of watchmakers, you are going to have to do more than just that one core. They're going to have to work on something bigger that covers their three-handers as well. So all of that is what sets the scene for the speculation in this video. That is, I think that Breitling is getting ready to move away from ETA or Sellita based movements for some of their movements. I think that they are getting ready to introduce either manufacture calibers, something like their Tudor partnership across the board for all three-handed watches, or potentially even going completely in-house. There was a very ambiguous comment that George Kern made in an interview with Europstar earlier in 2020, where he implied that some development of the B01 automatic movement was an open secret. Was he talking solely about chronographs, or was he implying something more? I don't know. Can't be certain. However, if I watch the totality of Breitling's behavior, I believe they are getting ready to move away from ETA and Sellita movements. I believe that they are trimming down all of their catalogs that rely on those movements, putting them in a corner, not over-investing, not producing new watches, and are instead getting ready for what comes next. I don't know what that's going to be. I'm pretty excited to see. That'll be sort of maybe some future speculation. What do you think? What would you like to see? What do you think they should do? Very quickly, what I would like to see, something that some of the stuff that came out of the ChronoWorks models like about 2 or 3 years ago, much more use of like ceramic backplates, the use of silicon parts. I would love to see Breitling embrace METAS certification, particularly for their tool watches like the Super Oceans, Navitimers, Avengers, that sort of thing. But yeah, what would you like to see? I've been Pete McConville. This has been Not So Obvious Watches. Leave your comments below and I'll see and speak to you later in some sort of follow-up to this video, I think.